Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. So now we're in the middle of this chapter, which, like Krishna said himself in the beginning of the chapter, is just like the instructions he gave to Arjuna in Bhagavad-gita. So this chapter is just like chapter 10 of Bhagavad-gita. And the way this works is this: Krishna will list a category of things, mountains, snakes, this, that, and then of the most famous thing in that category, he'll say, that's what I am. So it's a way of going through, like in modern days, you might say of cars, Bugatti, that's what, of cities, whatever's the best city in the world, I don't even know. So you just go through all these like categories of the best things, and you say, oh, that's what I am. So Krishna goes through. So it's interesting for us to understand the power of Krishna, the power of God, the glory of God. Again, this is called Aishvarya Jnana, this whole section. Aishvarya, the power, the opulence of God. This helps you get into a devotional mood. This helps you see the world and understand that everything that we think is good or powerful, it's coming from God. And the best, of course, is because Krishna is the best. And this is Krishna's way of teaching us. This is a guide Krishna is giving us to understand the supremacy of God. So we started with a few verses in the last class, but now we're really going to start cracking in this class. So again, we are in the 11th canto, 16th chapter, in verse 11. Among those things possessing qualities, I am the primary manifestations of nature. And among great things, I am the total material creation. Among subtle things, I am the spirit soul, and of things that are difficult to conquer, I am the mind. So we can certainly understand that last one. So, of the primary manifestation, it would be like the beginning of all things. So of those possessing qualities, he is the beginning of all qualities, the primary manifestation, the Sutra Tattva. Among great things, he's the Mahatam. Of great things, he is the Mahan, the total material manifestation. So what's greater than the totality of all of existence? So that's what Krishna is. Aham. So everything he says in the end, Aham, I am. Aham, I am. Of the subtle things, he is the Jiva, the spirit soul, because as we look around and try to understand reality, and we're ever like studying, like in science today, they're studying subatomic part, started just studying things, and then like the atoms, and then like how subatomic particles, so now how the quarks, and so no, it's like subtler and subtler, it's going deeper and deeper, try to understand the essence of reality. But of course, the subtlest thing of all is jiva, is the soul. That's the thing that, scientists won't be able to quite find yet. I don't know. They might, because as they go deeper and deeper, what's happening in science, this is just a parenthesis, is what's happening in science. This is like hardcore science. What's happening is the concept of space-time is doomed. So this is like, Nobel Prize winners saying these things. The concept of space-time is doomed, because as they go deeper and deeper, they're seeing that it breaks down. It doesn't make sense. So that at the Planck level, things break down. It doesn't make sense anymore. So there are things beyond that. So the concept of space-time is doomed, and they're going to have to start thinking about consciousness, like what's beyond space-time. How does consciousness fit into this thing? So they might have some hints of the existence of another realm, in science soon enough. Okay, so of the subtle things, he is Jiva, the spirit soul, and of the things that are difficult to conquer, he is the mind, manas. So yes, we know how difficult it is to conquer our mind. Verse 12, among the Vedas, I am the original teacher, Lord Brahma. And of all mantras, I am the three-lettered Omkara. It's A-U-M, Om. So it's the three-lettered Omkara, A-U-M. Among letters, I am the first letter A. And among sacred meters, I am the Gayatri mantra. So he says exactly that also in the Bhagavad-gita. Again, there's no, these verses, the previous acharyas didn't leave any comments because they're self-explanatory. For us, it's interesting just to look at the cultural items being mentioned. So of the original teacher, Lord Brahma, because of course, Lord Brahma, when he starts the creation of the universe, he then gets the darshan of Lord Narayan, and then he receives the sound of all the Vedas. He receives the Vedas from the Lord directly, and then of course from then on he's the one who has to teach the whole universe. So all the teachings come from him. In our parampara, in our line of disciplic succession of spiritual masters, we have, just before Krishna, we have Brahma. So we have him as one of our, as our first guru in the material world, aside from Krishna. Okay, in the three-letter mantras, the great mantra Om, very important. The other verses and chapters dedicated to Om in the Bhagavad Purana, and of course in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna also says that he is Om, and in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali says that Om is this manifestation, chanting Om will connect you to Ishvara, so Om is always so important, it's always there. Of the first letters, I'm the letter A, you've heard that also in the Christian tradition, and of the sacred meters, I am the Gayatri mantra. Verse 13, among the demigods, I am Indra. Of course, Indra is the god is the king of the demigods. And among the Vasus, I am Agni, the god of fire. I am Vishnu among the sons of Aditi, and among the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Purport, Lord Vishnu appeared among the sons of Aditi as Vamanadeva, one of the Lord's very peculiar incarnations, avatars, is as a dwarf, a demigod dwarf, Vamanadeva. Vamana just means dwarf, so the divine dwarf, Vamanadeva, who appears as the son of Aditi. And so, and the sons of Aditi are the very important demigods, and so he appeared there as well, so he is, that's the number one version of all her sons, of course, is an avatar. And among Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. So Shiva and the Rudras, it's a bit complicated, but there's this whole classification of different Rudras, and the topmost Rudra is Lord Shiva. Okay, verse 14. Among saintly Brahmanas, I am Bhrigu Muni. And I am Manu among saintly kings. I am Narada Muni among saintly demigods. And I am Kamadhenu among cows. So Kamadhenu is just a very famous cow. You'll see in the itihasas, in the stories, it's a kind of a divine, special cow. So Krishna says among you, so that's the topmost cow. So there's, aham, I am. And Bhrigu Muni, he's the Brahmana, he's the ritualistic Brahmana of the demigods. He's like a cosmic Brahmana, Bhrigu Muni. And Manu, of course, is the father of mankind. He is a ruler of great importance. He's more important than a demigod even. And so Manus are a special category, and of course there are different Manus and different periods. Even the periods are called periods of Manu. So these different Manu periods, and so Manu reigns over his whole, it's a cosmic reign. So he's a topmost, a ruler in that sense. So he's a saintly king. So he's the Raja Rishi. Of all Raja Rishis, the Manu is the best. And of course, Narada Muni is, he says here, among saintly demigods. We've got, he's the Rishi among the Devas. I would even put it more like that way. So Narada Muni, of course, is this cosmic guru. He's the ambassador of bhakti to this whole universe. So Narada Muni, of course, is everywhere here in the Bhagavad Purana. From beginning to end, you'll see Narada Muni. Narada Muni is the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, who compiled the Bhagavad Purana, and he's very important. He plays a key role in Krishna's coming 5,000 years ago. He plays a key role in that. He plays a key role in many of the great Bhagavad Purana stories. He's always there, giving assistance and participating. And he's also teaching all these great souls throughout time in the universe, because he is a son of Lord Brahma. He appears at the beginning of the universe and he just stays on for the whole time, and he's free to come and go. He goes back to the spiritual world, comes here, he's free to come and go, but he is like an ambassador of bhakti yoga, so he's always teaching yoga, bhakti, especially devotion. So he is, among all the rishis of the devas, Krishna says, I am Narada Muni. So when Krishna is saying these things, aham, I am, it's not that he is actually Kamadhenu. It's not that Kamadhenu is like an incarnation of Krishna, non-different from Krishna. It's not that, Narada Muni is Krishna. No, Narada Muni is an eternal servant of Krishna. He's a separate soul. He's an Atma. He's a Jiva. He's a separate special soul, empowered. Yes, he's Shakti Avesha avatar, but he's not Krishna. So when he says I am, it's in the sense of, again, classifications. Again, it's like, of all cars, I'm the Bugatti. It doesn't mean that I'm actually a Bugatti. It just means that, that is the best car, and I'm like that if we were talking cars. It's in that sense that he's using this structure. Verse 15. I am Lord Kapila among perfected beings, and Garuda among birds. I am Daksha among the progenitors of mankind, and I'm Aryama among the forefathers. Okay, so Lord Kapila, of course, is Krishna. That's a very important avatar of Krishna, of God. And Lord Kapila appears in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavad Purana. Very important, very big section of the Bhagavad Purana. When Lord Kapila is the one who brings us Sankhya philosophy. So the philosophy of Sankhya is, Lord Kapila is the original teacher of that philosophy. Very important, very wonderful teachings of Lord Kapila to his mother Devahuti in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavad Purana. And if you haven't gotten to that yet, make sure you get there, before you leave this body. So Lord Kapila is, and he plays the role of this perfected being. So Krishna says, I am Lord Kapila. Garuda among birds. Of course, Garuda is the carrier of Lord Vishnu. Garuda carries. So these, Lord Brahma, Shiva. Lord Brahma has what's it called? Swan. As a kind of it's not like a regular earthly swan. Of course, it's like some cosmic, divine, like super powered swan that is his carrier. They don't use UFOs, they don't use like airplanes, or like metal structures. These great beings, they travel with these carriers. So they get to go all over the universe, taken by these special carriers. So Lord Brahma has this swan. I don't know the name of the swan, not so famous. But then Lord Vishnu has Garuda, this great half eagle, half man. So Garuda is always there, plays a big part also. In many stories, he pops up here and there, Lord Garuda. And you'll see in Vishnu temples and Krishna temples, you might see a statue of Lord Garuda at the entrance as well. So Lord Garuda for Krishna, and of course Shiva has his bull, Nanda the bull. So he's got a big bull. And I am Daksha among the progenitors of mankind. And it's interesting that we're talking about Bhrigu Muni, we're talking about Daksha here. And of course, these two were a big subject of one of the most famous stories in the 4th canto of the Bhagavad Purana, which is the story of Sati, the wife, wife of Lord Shiva, who has to give up her body, kind of commits suicide, kind of like a ritualistic suicide she commits, because she didn't like Daksha, because Daksha was offending Lord Shiva. So Daksha was being very materialistic and kind of closed-minded, and he thought Lord Shiva was like a fallen, silly person because he'd go around, in ashes and wearing human skulls as garlands of human skulls. So he thought he was like he didn't understand the position of Lord Shiva, and so he offended him. And Sati was married to Lord Shiva, and she got so upset to be like the daughter of Daksha, who had offended Shiva, that she just gave up her own body. In a yogic fire, she sat down in yoga and just burned her body to ashes, and then she took reincarnation, and she married Shiva again. But so in that story, Daksha is kind of like the bad guy. He doesn't do so well, and he does get beheaded by the followers of Lord Shiva because of all his offenses. But then something happens, then he recovers his life. So he recovers his senses. But anyway, Daksha was the primary progenitor. So these progenitors, these Prajapatis, these are special beings. The Prajapatis are way more important than the Devas. So we think, Indra, Deva is very important. No, but then there's scale. So Manu is more important than the Devas. And more important than Manu even would be the Prajapatis. The Prajapatis were way up there in the cosmic hierarchy. And they came to be from Lord Brahma, because Lord Brahma had to populate the universe. When Lord Brahma starts the universe, it's just an empty universe. He's got to do everything. That's his job. His job is to build the universe. It's a big job. But I guess he's the kind of soul who wanted a kind of big god-like power in construction and building. People get into that stuff, right? So he had to build the whole universe. He had to so then he, that part of actually creating the galaxies and stuff, he handles that himself. He does that pretty well. He doesn't need help with that. He does that pretty well. So he does that whole part, but then he's got to populate the whole universe. And so, in life in the material universe comes by, procreation. So you have to set up this whole scheme and all these different species. It's quite complicated, and he couldn't do it himself. Wouldn't have enough time to do it. So his first task he has to himself is I have to have children so he can produce some children from his body and from his mind, like Narada Muni and these great early cosmic saints. They came from him. They came from Lord Brahma. But then, you couldn't just do that for, countless trillions of living entities in the world. He has to get the system going. So then he creates these Prajapatis. So these Prajapatis are these special beings that came from Lord Brahma so that they could then populate the universe. So the idea is it's the Vedic explanation for the different species in the universe, in the world and in the universe, is from these Prajapatis. Now these Prajapatis, they could assume, they would have these different DNAs, these standard block DNAs from all the different species. And so they would assume that form. Let's say you want to have horses. So then these Prajapatis, they could assume this primordial horse form, then they would procreate, and then the child from that horse would be a real horse, like a regular horse, not some crazy being that can change its shape. It would just be a super horse, but it would be a horse. And then from then on, of course, they would have to do many children so they could have a little population going. And then from then on, nature would take its course. And then those horses would, regularly do things, just like as any animals, they would just breed and have children and so on. And then it would go on from there. And then, of course, they would adjust. You have horses in celestial world and horses in Dwarka and this one, in the earth. And, so then the horses would become big, small, tall, fat, short-lived, long-lived, strong, weak, whatever. So all the different varieties of horse would naturally occur over time, as just in the course of nature. But these Prajapatis would be the ones who would get that starting point, that starting seed. So snake, horse, bird, human. So they're the ones who would have to assume that form, have children. So they were very busy in that sense, going all over the universe, populating the universe. So that's what Prajapatis are. So Daksha was the chief among the Prajapatis. So he got all proud because this is like a really important position. And then he offended Lord Shiva. But anyway, so Krishna says, it's interesting, Krishna says that he is Daksha among the Prajapatis. So Daksha still is the best, most powerful of all the Prajapatis. Okay, verse 16. My dear Uddhava, among the demonic sons of Diti, so you have Aditi with demigod sons, and then you have Diti with the Asuras. It's translated as demonic, but it's not a good translation. There is no proper translation. The word is Asuric. So there's the Suras and the Asuras. And so the Asuras, is translated as demons, but they're not like, I don't know, they're just like very proud, materialists, just greedy. So, they're Asuric in that sense. If you want to understand what Asura means, then in Bhagavad-gita chapter 16 is dedicated, Krishna explains Sura qualities very quickly actually. And then pretty much the whole chapter is about Asuric qualities, the qualities which again translated as demonic, but it's not demonic. It's just what you see all over planet Earth, it's just proud and angry, materialist, and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna conquer that, and I'm gonna be the best, and I'm happy, and I'm successful, and I'm rich, and powerful. It's just that kind of rajasic, when your mind is very influenced by rajas, that kind of mentality. So that's what Asuric mentality is. But anyway, so Diti she's the starting point in the beginning of the universal creation. You had to create these different beings, of course, and so so Diti had to open up the way for this race, for this civilization of these Asuras, again translated as demons. And then Aditi is the one who started the devas, the suras, the demigods. So this is like back in the early days of the universe. So anyway, among the demonic sons of Diti, know me to be Prahlada Maharaj. Now, of course, Prahlad Maharaj is a most wonderful, very special, powerful Mahabhagavata, one of the greatest devotees, greatest bhakti yogis of all time in this universe. He is among the 12 topmost super devotees of the Lord. So Prahlad Maharaj is very famous, and of course he's got everything to do with Nrsimhadev, who's here in my altar. So Nrsimhadev comes to the world only to protect Prahlad Maharaj. That's how important and wonderful Prahlad Maharaj was. Such an important, famous avatar, Nrsimhadev, comes just to protect him from his really demonic father, of course, Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyakashipu was at a certain point, he was the leader of all these Asuras. And he's also a very important character. He's actually a Shaktya-Vesha avatar as well. He came to this universe just to play the role of arch-villain to Lord Nrsimhadev. But anyway, that's another story, wonderful story, of course, of Nrsimhadev that takes up almost a whole canto in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Purana. So it's a very important story indeed. But anyway, Prahlad is the hero of that story. He's this innocent boy. He's this perfect little innocent devotee, yogi, who tries to preach yoga and bhakti yoga and devotion in the middle, in the court of this most anti-theist of all, Hiranyakashipu, who hates God. He's not just an atheist, He's an anti-theist. He knows he just hates God. He hates Vishnu. Vishnu is his number one enemy. And then his child is preaching devotion to Vishnu. So it's a very dramatic story. Wonderful, wonderful story. And of course, then Prahlad Maharaj is born in the family, in the dynasty of the Asuras. And he certainly is the most wonderful of all Asuras. And so Krishna says, of them, I am Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly lord of the Asuras. Because then, of course, Nrsingadev kills Hiranyakashipu, and then Prahlad Maharaj takes over as the leader, because Hiranyakashipu was the leader, and then he takes the throne, as it were. He becomes, this great devotee becomes the chief of all these Asuras. Anyway, very interesting. Among the stars and herbs, I am their Lord Chandra, the moon. So among the stars, in the sense of stars here, it's like, oh, come on, the moon isn't a star. No, I know, different sets of understanding. What they mean is among the things in the night sky, not stars in the way like, astrophysicists would use today, like, oh, these things glowing, blah, blah, blah. No, like the sun. No, it just means like at night, there's all these little bright things in the sky. So of all those things, of course, the most incredible is the moon. It's like, there's no comparison, right? The moon is little stars, the moon. So the moon, of course, is the most amazing thing. So among stars, in that sense, amongst, it would be better, other words would be better translated than stars. You could say among the nighttime, objects in the sky. I am the moon. And also among the herbs as well, because the plants, they all depend, of course, plants depend on the moon, because the moon affects the plants, and without the moon, you won't have these different cycles of the plants. So Krishna says, I am the moon for herbs and stars. Among yakshas and rakshasas, I am the Lord of wealth, Kuvera. So the yakshas and rakshasas, they are like another civilization of beings, non-human beings, very famous, and they're kind of like hardcore. They're like kind of like ogres and giants. They're not very nice people. Some people have made a connection, and they live between planet Earth and the sun in the description of the Vedas. Like they live, like not on planet Earth, but not like way up. It's like kind of in between. So some people have made the connection between, the story of the beanstalk. What's it called? What's it? John. Who is it? Jack. Is it Jack? Jack and the beanstalk. He plants the magic bean, and then he goes up and up and up. So it's like not on Earth, but it's not like space. And he sees those evil giants who had all that wealth, the golden goose and all that. So they're like that. They say that might be like a story that kind of developed from these ancient Vedic ideas, Jack and the beanstalk. So these beings, these yakshas and rakshasas, they're kind of like these hardcore beings. But then amongst them is the treasurer of the demigods, who's called Kuvera. So it's really interesting. There's this treasurer of all these beings, Kuvera. So Kuvera, like endless wealth, and because the concept of treasure, even recently, even up to like medieval times in India, was really interesting. Like as the treasurer, you kind of got to enjoy the wealth as well. It wasn't just like, let's say a person works in a bank today, like you work in a bank and you're controlling and dealing with billions of dollars, but you get a salary. That's all yours. You can't touch anything else, and you just get like, look, you only had this little salary will be deposited. And like these ancient times, like the treasure was like, they kind of enjoyed it all. So it was like, it wasn't their money technically, but it's like, they got to use it as well. So they had access to endless money, even though it wasn't technically theirs. They were being a treasurer, but they get to live in amazing opulence, and just have the best of the best, and the service, and the gold, and the bling, so they had to they lived in this world of wealth, even though it wasn't strictly their wealth. Okay, very good. So we have to stop here. Wonderful, isn't it? We haven't quite finished yet. The list will go on, but I love these sessions. Asrarya are very nice, gives us access to the culture and also to the glory of God. So I hope you enjoy that and have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love. Hare Krishna.